Well, welcome back, everybody. I hope that you're excited because now we are moving on to the guide. It's Friday. so, I couldn't really find too many, I'm not going to lie, but I did find this one, and I know that they have actually had quite a bit of other good content before that I've seen off screen. So, I kind of trust it. So, this is from the channel. It's Jonathan Miller Music. So, shout out to him for sure. Anyway, what happened to me? Let's do this, shall we?
Why is Boa known as the queen of K-pop? What happened to her, and why is her impact any different from more recent K-pop acts like BTS? If you're a K-pop fan or an artist yourself, wanting to know more about the K-pop industry, let's take a look at one of its biggest stars to find out why, even now, her legacy still matters. Because if you want to have a real conversation about who paved the way, it's Boa, and a lot of your faves would probably agree. Let's blast off and get started. JM in your universe. Konnichiwa, friends. I'm Jonathan Miller, and welcome back to Jonathan Miller Music, where we help each other become better artists. Boa is arguably one of the biggest and most respected names in K-pop. Her historical role in its current shape, global expansion, and economic improvement can't be denied, even if the modern, typical young K-pop fan might not even know her name. With her recent inclusion in Girls on Top, SM Entertainment's new purposeful supergroup, similar to Super M and Unique Unit, I was surprised to see just how many people don't even know who she is, or what she's done, or why her inclusion in Girls on Top even matters, which actually is kind of a roundabout testament to what she's done for K-pop. For 16 years, Boa held the record of being the only K-pop act to sell over 1 million copies of their album in Japan.
Wow.
And she still remains as the only one who's done it multiple times. She's released over 20 studio albums, 10 in Korean, 9 in Japanese, and 1 in English, and is largely the reason K-pop acts today get to break into the Japanese market. She's also one of only 3 female artists ever to have 6 consecutive #1s on the Japanese Oricon charts. She has starred in multiple movies, including Make Your Move alongside Derek Huff. She was the very first K-pop act to ever get on the Billboard 200 charts in the USA. She currently is one of SM Entertainment's executive creative directors, focusing on artists' mental health at the label. Boa also still remains as the only Korean act ever to win the Inspired Achievement Award at the Mamas alongside people like Janet Jackson, one of Korea's biggest music award shows. Every single member of Girls on Top has a job because of Boa, and most importantly, they know it. She's been cited as an important role model to artists like Tiffany Young, Taeyeon, Kay from Lovelyz, Chungha, and Key, and so many more. Boa is an artist that many have been inspired by and can learn from, including myself. But why? If you've never heard of her, or you don't really like K-pop, or maybe you don't really know much about it, what could you possibly learn from her that you can't learn from somebody else? Awards are cool, and so are #1s.
Good question.
But people like BTS get #1s now faster than the latest TikTok trend. Why does her success matter, and why should you care? Well, in order to understand Boa's impact, and how it continues to directly affect artists of today, as with anything involving culture, it's important to know the history. To start, we need to take a little journey back to 1985, 1 year before Miss Boa.
You know, that's actually one of the whole reasons why I do this, is one of my favorite things is actually to know where things come from. It would be very easy to sit here and just do the, the big popular groups that are new and upcoming. It'd be very easy. But there's a lot that goes on that has led us to this point, and I wish to understand that. And I think that we're going to get a very big answer for that right here.
Boa was even born, because Boa and economics actually go hand in hand. In the early 80s, the US dollar was steadily rising in value and getting stronger and stronger, eventually appreciating over 47.9%. $1 was worth a lot of money. Because of its strength and its growth rate, many other countries pegged their currencies to the US dollar in order to stabilize their own currencies, meaning that the exchange rate between those countries and the US wouldn't go out of hand. The problem was that the US dollar's fast appreciation was putting enormous stress stress on the US manufacturing industry, as importing goods from outside the US was a lot cheaper than producing things domestically. Basically, why spend money making a car when I can just buy the same quality car already made from somewhere else for cheaper? As a way of potentially stabilizing the market and depreciating the US dollar, the G5 nations of France, Germany, the UK, the US, and Japan all entered into an agreement called the Plaza Accord, signed on September 22nd, 1985, and named after the Plaza Hotel in New York City, where the accord was signed. The intention was to depreciate the US dollar relative to the German Deutschmark and the Japanese yen, and correct some trade imbalances between the US and Germany and the US and Japan. However, it only managed to fully correct the imbalances between the US and Germany. By 1987, the Plaza Accord had mostly reached its intended goals, but wouldn't fully be reversed until 1995. The US and Japan kept their monetary pledges to one another, and all 5 countries agreed to step in if in the future their currencies fell outside a certain range in value. Ultimately, the US, Germany, and Japan agreed to let the US dollar appreciate again relative to the Deutschmark and yen. All's well that ends well. However, this had consequential side effects. Japan became a pop icon in the international market stage because of the Plaza Accord. To be less dependent on the US, this inadvertently caused Japan to increase its trade with other East Asian countries that were still pegged to the US dollar, leading to many financial pressures in those countries as Japan became more competitive in the world of global exports. Many East Asian countries were finding it very difficult to borrow money in US dollars to try and help their own domestic industries while still being linked to the US dollar. The exchange rate was not adding up. Therefore, in July of 1997, Thailand decided to stop pegging the baht to the US dollar as an attempt to float its own currency. However, this move failed and set off a chain reaction almost immediately, resulting in what's now known as the 1997 Asian financial crisis. Multiple currencies declined up to 38%, the stock markets declined, import revenues decreased at rapid rates, government upheaval even ensued, especially in Indonesia, when President Suharto was forced to step down due to widespread rioting. International stocks fell down to almost 60%. The International Monetary Fund eventually stepped in with some bailouts to aid in recovery, since hundreds of billions of dollars were at stake here. Places like Indonesia, Thailand, Laos, Malaysia, the Philippines, China, Singapore, Vietnam, Hong Kong, and Japan, and more were all affected and forced into finding ways to help their own countries recover as well as each other's. One of the hardest hit countries was South Korea, and everyone was trying to come up with ways to help each other. But Japan and South Korea were not exactly on good terms. Japan and South Korea have a very rocky history, largely due to Japan's occupation of Korea from 1910 to 1945. Japan didn't even fully relinquish control over Korea until it signed the Treaty of San Francisco in 1952. The topic remains very controversial and sensitive because of topics like the enlistment of Korean men in World War II, comfort women, forced religion, ideology, language, and a lot more. As a non-native Korean individual, I would highly encourage you to do your own research on these topics and listen to the stories of those who are. But for the sake of this video, it's important to know that censorship of Japanese media in South Korea existed until the late 1990s. And as of 2018, some of those laws still remain intact. However, as I mentioned earlier, during the 1997 Asian financial crisis, East Asian countries needed to find a way to boost domestic economies and each other's in order to recover. So in October of 1998, Korean President Kim Tae-jung began lifting the ban on Japanese video games, music, films, and more to, quote, further advance South Korean culture. In 1998, Japanese manga was allowed to be imported for the first time, conveniently at the beginning of Pokemon Mania, as it began to take over the world.
Pokemon Mania. That was wild. I still have all my original Pokemon cards.
1998 saw the recovery of the Asian financial crisis, the fall of decades-old economic barriers between Japan and South Korea, as well as a little girl being immediately offered a The South Korean economy needed a way to give itself a boost, and the entertainment industry was one of the easiest and most effective ways to do that. So in its growing music scene, early K-pop acts like HOT began releasing music in Mandarin Chinese as a way of bringing in revenue through imports to boost the South Korean economy, but also as a way of boosting the economies of neighboring countries affected by the financial crisis.
Interesting.
Mandarin, being one of the widest spoken languages, made the most sense to do, as it made K-pop more accessible to foreign audiences, and it brought interest into South Korean media. But China's music market isn't very big, all things considered.
Yeah.
Japan, however, is the second biggest music market in the entire world.
Whoa.
Even still today, worth over $2.9 billion in 2020.
Wow.
The only other music market ahead of it is the United States, which back in the 90s was experiencing its own boom, courtesy of acts like Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, Mariah Carey, and NSYNC. The Japanese market was lucrative and heavily sought after.
Wow.
Ever wonder why your favorite albums have all those bonus tracks exclusive to Japan? That's one of the reasons why. Also import fees, but that's for another day. But with censorship and tensions only just beginning to loosen, South Korea just couldn't seem to break into the Japanese market. They needed a superstar. At age 11, Boa Kwan and her brother auditioned for SM Entertainment via a talent search.
11
but
years
unfortunately for
old.
her brother, the talent scout immediately noticed Boa, her exceptional talent at such a young age, and offered her a contract on the spot that
11 and you're getting a contract. 11.
night. While her parents, understandably so, were not really keen on her leaving school to join the entertainment industry, her big supportive older brother happened to convince them, and she signed on the dotted line. K-pop, adopting a training model similar to J-pop, in which talent is scouted first and trained before debuting, rather than a Western model of finding raw talent and getting them out quickly. Boa trained for 2 years. She took English, voice lessons, dance lessons, and Japanese lessons, as SM Entertainment believed that Boa's youth, charisma, and talent could potentially do well over there. In the year
The amount of pressure that they put on Boa, although she rose to the occasion, is a little unfair. That is so crazy.
2000, she released her debut album ID Piece B in South Korea to moderate success, earning her a top 10. In 2001, after the release of her mini album Don't Start Now, SM Entertainment finally reached a deal with Japanese record label Avex Trax, home to big J-pop acts like Ayumi Hamasaki, to launch Boa in the Japanese market. Boa then entered a hiatus in Korea to prepare and trained even more extensively in Japanese to increase her fluency. Upon releasing her debut Japanese album Listen to My Heart, Boa became the very first Korean artist to ever debut atop the Japanese Oricon charts, selling over 1 million copies. Nicknamed Baby Boa, Japanese fans took to her quickly with hits like the Japanese version of ID Piece B, Kimochi wa Tsutawaru, and Listen to My Heart. It also marked the first time that Boa contributed to writing and composing on her own albums. Her follow-up Japanese album Valenti became her best-selling album with over 1,249,000 copies sold. This would be the groundwork for every other K-pop act's success in Japan. If it hadn't been for Boa at just 14 years old, K-pop might never have broken into the Japanese market. Furthermore, SM Entertainment was actually on the verge of bankruptcy at this time. Shinhwa, while very successful, couldn't quite reach the level of success that HOT had left SM after disbanding. SM Entertainment was losing money, so it took a big gamble on a teenage girl to see if it could win. And it did. Boa not only brought in revenue back to South Korea after the Asian financial crisis, she essentially also saved her own record label's butt and created the blueprint to success in foreign markets that many following acts would
Respect
use
on the name.
Over the next few years, Boa would continue to release music both in Japan and South Korea, and even China. After the September 11th attacks in the US, she teamed up with Kumi Koda to release a single called The Meaning of Peace to raise funds for charity. She became, and still remains as, the only Korean act to have 3 albums sell over 1 million copies in Japan, and one of only 3 female artists to ever have 6 consecutive #1 albums on the Oricon charts there as well. By 2008, Boa had released 6 Japanese albums and 5 Korean albums, been dubbed new nicknames like the Britney Spears of K-pop due to her massive popularity and dancing skills.
Holy
With all
cow.
that going on,
That just melts my mind seeing them together. Wow, 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 wow. Yeah, this is incredible.
On for her, there was one more major music market to tackle, and in the growing digital age, how could she not succeed? So, SM Entertainment, hopeful she would follow in the blueprint laid for her by Janet Jackson and become a worldwide phenomenon, SM launched SM Entertainment USA. It was time to see if BoA could be one of the first East Asian acts to dominate the biggest music market in the world. The problem was, though, the US wasn't ready.
Yeah, right?
Everyone outside the US understands just how hard it is to break into this market, except the people in the US. They know it's hard, don't get me wrong, and by today's standards, it might be a little hard to imagine, but for a foreign person of color, the US music market is notoriously racist. Even in 2008, as young millennials were the target open-minded demographic, BoA was coming in at the same time as Lady Gaga, Britney Spears' return, Kesha, Katy Perry, and so many other pop icons at the time. Britney Spears in particular had already left a noticeable hole in the pop market due to her being put into her conservatorship and rebuilding her image with Circus. Lady Gaga was coming in fast to fill that hole, and that left little room for BoA, who at this point had a lot more professional experience than some of the artists at that time. Unfortunately, this meant that BoA had to compete twice as hard, even though in an industry at the time that only cared about credits, didn't really care about hers. As one of K-pop's earliest supporters of the LGBTQ+ community, BoA launched her debut English single Eat You Up with a performance at San Francisco Pride after its release. BoA stated it had always been a dream of hers to debut in America, but found English a lot harder to learn and speak as compared to Japanese. She also said it was difficult to make friends, something that a lot of non-native English speakers understand very well. The US music market isn't like other places, and kind of works on a prove-it-to-me attitude, and more often than not, just tends to not be very receptive to new acts in general anyway. Still, BoA did manage to become the first K-pop act ever to chart on the Billboard 200, and Eat You Up happened to hit number 9 on the Billboard Hot Dance Club Play chart. In short, BoA couldn't replicate her Japanese success due to thick competition, and honestly, the time period in which she tried to debut. Most top pop acts at this time were white, but that would begin to change as the decade changed too.
So the early 2008, at that point, I was really kind of getting out of my emo phase, kind of more into the goth phase. I was starting to kind of go out of My Chemical Romance and into the Cradle of Filth kind of like section of my life. So I would have never even known. It would have been so far out of my wheelhouse and radar that this is just one of those things that where it's like, I sit here and think to myself, like, I can't believe stuff like this is happening and I didn't know. And it's so incredible to me just to think, holy crap. Now that I'm learning about it, it's just so kind of eye-opening, you know? It's really is.
A call for diversity in US media from young people would eventually reintroduce BoA to American audiences in, albeit a less focused way, as the Korean music wave crashed on its shores in 2012, courtesy of Psy's Gangnam Style. In summary, she was too early. In the 2010s, BoA continued to make waves in K-pop when she released her album Only One, in which her entirely self-written and self-composed title track received an all-kill on music shows in South Korea. That basically means she won everything. She recorded music for the Japanese anime Fairy Tail with the song Masa Yume Chasing, at this point being fluent in Japanese, Korean, and English.
Fairy Tail? I think I might have actually watched that. I'll have to look it up.
She continued to stay active, even releasing Kiss My Lips, her Korean 8th studio album, in which everything is entirely self-composed and self-written by her. She continued to do acting and voiceover work, as well as becoming a judge and voice coach on The Voice Korea. She even became, as I mentioned earlier, one of SM Entertainment's executive creative directors, specializing in the mental health of artists. Since being a soloist all this time, she never really had any group mates to rely on when things got sad or tough.
Yeah.
Being in a group was something Boa had repeatedly stated she would have liked to do many times. And in 2022, she finally got her wish.
Yeah.
As of this recording, there are 4 distinct generations of K-pop, which is about half the generations of Pokemon. Gen 1 consists of acts like HOT, SES, Shinhwa, and Boa kinda sits near the end of that. Gen 2 contains acts like Girls' Generation, TVXQ, Kara, SHINee, 21, Big Bang, Wonder Girls, and EXO. Generation 3 takes place with debuting groups between 2013 and 2019, and ushered in groups like Blackpink, BTS, Red Velvet, Twice, NCT, GOT7, 17, and many more. Generation 4, K-pop's most current generation, belongs to groups like ITZY, IVE, Kepler, and aespa. K-pop's growth and development as a global export gets easier to track with each generational change as the advancements of technologies like iTunes to Spotify occur, or things like social and historical movements, like changing leaders, or even the switch of target demographics from millennials to Gen Z, musical and fashion trends evolving, etc. K-pop has grown quite a bit very rapidly, all things considered, in the last 25 years. And with every generation comes a generational switch. One thing many Gen 3 K-pop fans are currently experiencing is watching their favorite groups learn how to transition into more of a senior role. Something that Gen 1 and Gen 2 fans already know pretty well, and the emotions it can bring up as we all get a little bit older. K-pop and Korean culture functions in a little bit of a hierarchy in which seniors are more respected due to their level and experience, called sunbae. Hubaes being the opposite as someone with lesser experience. So right now, groups like Red Velvet, whom were the first K-pop girl group to top the Billboard World Albums chart 4 times, have been nominated for nearly 70 awards and won over 22, and had their music video for Dum Dum be the only non-English song on Rolling Stone's Best Music Videos of 2015 list, are beginning to go from the ones to beat to the ones to be respected. A transition that Boa is no stranger to. In 2020, K-pop became the fastest growing music market in the world, something that SM Entertainment is very well aware of. As a unique way of reintroducing older groups and artists, SM announced its remastering project. Older music videos would be remastered using modern technology.
I've used a lot of those.
Uploaded to YouTube, which is also the internet's second largest search engine. In December of 2021, they also announced that rookie group aespa would be remaking Gen 1 group SES's 1998 hit Dreams Come True. This, fresh off the heels of aespa's mega viral song Next Level, which solidified their place as a group worth remembering in an age where K-pop debuts are rather common. What was perhaps most interesting, though, is that Boa was announced to be heavily involved in the production, choreography, and visuals of Dreams Come True. And that she was. Boa, executive creative director, multi-million album seller, and 20-plus year soloist, would be, for the first time, producing a song for a group consisting of members who didn't even exist when Boa first debuted. aespa, as seen in SM's remastering project, was eager to learn from their sunbae, as she gave critique and pushed them outside of their comfort zones. In particular, Winter seemed to really jot down some notes from her. In terms of performance, as you can visibly see a change in showmanship in her face.
I actually have to say, I think Winter is actually a very phenomenal performer. I think a lot of people generally go for Karina when it comes to that group, but honestly, for me, I've always been so impressed with Winter.
Between their debut Black Mamba and the live stages of Dreams Come True, even though the difference is only about a year. Bada, an original member of SES and the lyricist for the track, also visited aespa during this time to also give them tips, including showing them how to hear themselves properly while singing on stage, which you can visibly see Winter again emulate in live performances of Dreams Come True. Boa helped Karina focus through her fear of heights while on set, and even changed the whole set around just so member Giselle could move more freely and not be stuck on the stairs. Boa's mentorship really shows because the song became a top 10 hit on many popular Korean music charts. aespa and Boa's work together demonstrates the power of cross-generational cooperation, much like how Boa's original success demonstrates the power of cross-country cooperation. And luckily, it wouldn't be the last time they worked together.
We have some of this
SM
stuff
Entertainment
coming.
doesn't work like your typical record label here in the West, where every artist on its roster kind of operates as its own entity.
We do have Got the Beat coming, by the way. We do actually have their music loaded and ready to go here in the next couple of days.
SM treats all groups and idols, yes, as their own individual thing, but also as part of one collective whole, meaning that it's not afraid to bring all of its acts together for things like SM Town, or one-off singles, or even groups consisting of members from various other groups within SM Entertainment. It doesn't mean that any member has left their respective group, it's just something that SM does. These supergroups like Unique Unit and Super M are usually made to bring the best of the best together to try and experiment with different dynamics in order to highlight something. It's not necessarily one group trying to copy another, as this is all in the same house, remember? It's more so about bringing audiences together and, of course, selling records.
Yes,
while Super M might
money.
be arguably one of the most memorable of these supergroups in recent history, Girls on Top, however, brings the best of the best from SM's best female groups.
Oh, is it
and
Girls
for the
on Top?
first
Yeah,
time,
that's right.
BoA, aka the reason any of them have a job in the first place, who at this time had never been a part of a group. SM Entertainment right now wants to reintroduce its older groups and members to younger fans, now that K-pop as a whole has exploded to a global audience. If we take a look at each member of Girls on Top and their respective groups, it's a lot more strategic than it might seem on the surface. This is a group, mind you, that contains members from all 4 generations of K-pop. If you want to weigh in with the kids, bring the kids. aespa's Winter, known for her powerful voice and visuals similar to Taeyeon, fills the role of familiarity. Fellow aespa member Karina is here due to her striking visuals and being the leader of aespa. Her role is being the most recognizable face to the youngest K-pop fans. Red Velvet members Seulgi and Wendy belong for 2 reasons. Seulgi was an SM rookie training for over 7 years and is well known for her sleek dancing abilities. Wendy is known for her very distinct vocal high notes, as seen in Red Velvet's hit Really Bad Boy. She fulfills one of the powerful vocal slots that give the group distinction. Both of their inclusions also capture the older Gen Z demographic, music's current target demographic age range. The millennials are captured by Girls' Generation's Hyoyeon and Taeyeon. Girls' Generation was the girl group at one point. Being one of the highest grossing girl groups ever in terms of touring, their mega hit G was the best-selling single of 2009, and they have a string of #1 hits in Korea and Japan. Girls' Generation also as a group has been in an unusual hiatus in which 3 members are no longer a part of SM Entertainment, but the group is still said to be together. Both Hyoyeon and Taeyeon are also very successful solo artists. Hyoyeon is known to be one of K-pop's best dancers, and Taeyeon is known for being one of the best vocalists, fulfilling those roles in the group. Hyoyeon even worked as BoA's backup dancer in 2005, before she debuted in Girls' Generation in 2007. If you watch closely the live performance of Step Back, Girls on Top's latest single, all of these key moments play out in the performance. Taeyeon and Winter, Hyoyeon and BoA, Karina opening the song for familiarity, Winter referencing their hit Next Level, and Wendy and Seulgi standing out where they shine the most. The title of their group, Girls on Top, also likely comes from BoA's album of the same name. It's all very purposeful marketing that works. It brings together 4 active generations in a time where the myth that aging out of the music industry is constantly being challenged. This being another example of why. Every single member in that group has been inspired by BoA at one point. Girls on Top may be a group across time, but it exists because BoA's legacy allowed something like this to exist. But what about BTS? With their success all over the world, and the global expansion of K-pop directly tied to their name, how does BoA's impact even remotely compare? Especially given the fact that she wasn't able to fully break through into the US. Unlike BTS, who has been nominated for a Grammy twice, and nabbed over 6 Billboard Hot 100 #1 hits. Well, while you could argue that BTS paved their own way on their own path, or that they haven't paved any sort of way at all, although I wouldn't really agree with that. I would actually say that BoA and BTS's impact on K-pop is largely the same, just taking place in different generations, with different tools available to them at the time of their popularity. Both of them broke into a previously untappable music market. Both of them continued to be successful in foreign markets that were already tapped into, BoA in China, BTS in Japan. Both of them brought an interest in South Korean media. Both of them have brought an interest into South Korean tourism, language, food, and other media. BoA brought K-pop to an outside world who didn't even know what it was and certainly wasn't taken very seriously. BTS, meanwhile, brought K-pop to a world desperately trying to keep up in the streaming revolution of the music industry. During a desperate call for more diversity in music, both acts have shown that writing and producing your own music can not only just work in K-pop, but also break records and sell really well. BoA showed others how to break into the Japanese market. BTS is showing others how to break into the US market. Both acts making it easier for those who come after them. Both have experienced the chill of racism, bullying, and critique when speaking out. Both acts tend to be socially liberal in very conservative environments, and both have drastically affected the economies of multiple countries. The only thing that BoA can claim that BTS will never be able to is the fact that she built the system that BTS was able to use to push K-pop even further. The correct answer is both of them paved the way because they're paving the exact same road. BoA's hard work continues to be benefited from, even if less and less people are running around trying to give her credit. BoA couldn't succeed in the way that BTS can because the US in 2008 didn't quite have the desperate call for diversity and have it be heard and validated in the way that it is today. In 2008, there really wasn't any shortage of dancing pop girls, and there was no Spotify or TikTok to make music discoverability as easy as it is today. In my opinion, no act's music is any better than the others. It's more simply about the tools that were available at the time and public perception. BoA had to train for years and get so good at Japanese that my own friends growing up from Japan still consider BoA a bona fide J-pop star as a term of endearment, something that most K-pop acts in Japan are not really considered. She's inspired me as an artist as well by challenging me to put more work into my language studies. Releasing my song Marionette in Japanese was not only something I did because of how I grew up so closely with many people from Japan, as the son of a Japanese exchange program director, but she also showed me that pushing yourself to try new things helps you find what makes you special as an artist. I want to continue releasing music in English, French, and Japanese, the languages that I speak, which is why I still study them every day. I work on my music, I work on my languages. I do the work that makes me feel lonely without other people to lean on. If you're an artist as well, BoA's legacy should show you that opening the door and doing something that's never been done before, while maybe not directly affecting you like you had initially hoped, still creates aftershocks of positive change for years to come, whether you're independent or major label. She should show you that you're never too old to own your talents or step into new levels of creativity and explore your artistic interests. BoA Kwan played a role in saving her own country's economy, while inadvertently creating the blueprint for future K-pop acts to follow and make their dreams come true, while still remaining as one of the best-selling K-pop acts of all time. She truly has earned and deserves the appropriate nickname, Best of Asia.
That's really cool. Okay. So I wanted to just take a quick second to discuss that. I think I gotta be bold. I think that it's important to understand that so many of these groups and solo artists work together. It's a singular cause in a lot of senses. I mean, like you said, like it took BoA to get into Japan just like it took BTS to get into the United States. And I think to myself, how many times I hear so many groups talk about like other groups and artists that inspired them. And I mean, even something as recent as seeing like Yoongi or Suga talk about how he was inspired by Big Bang. And things like that, I just remember thinking to myself, like, wow, I think we sometimes get a little so in the weeds about stuff that we have to realize that, in a sense, first and foremost, a lot of them are kids. And then the second off, they are put under such immense pressure that it almost seems unfair to make kids do this. But, I am so incredibly impressed by Boa. The amount of pressure that was put on during such a difficult time for her country and for her as a person, to be loaded with such responsibility is so heavy. And personally, I don't really like the fact that any of them had to go through any trials. But, I always kind of say that if the trial, if the goal is worth it, then the trials are necessary. There's a saying that kind of goes around my city that says, if what you're fighting for is a good cause, then expect an uphill battle. And that's kind of more or less what this is. I really think that there's so much that I can still learn. And honestly, like, I am a musician and I'm a vocalist, and thinking about, and I am constantly so impressed by the vocalists that I hear inside of K-pop, whether it's Boa, whether it's Jimin, whether it's Baekhyun, whether it's Top or G-Dragon, whether it's Karina, whether if it's, hey, I'll even say, even if it's Lisa or Jisoo, or if it's Yuna or anyone from Twice, whether it's, Jihyo or whoever. I am so inspired and awed at just the amount of raw talent that I can always observe. Hey, I'll even say it. Even if it's groups like Beanie or SB19 or G22. Like, it puts on such a huge light on me that just makes me realize, wow, I am so incredibly privileged to be able to see this, because of the fact is that it does inspire me. And I may not be like super active musically right now, but I still think that sometimes there's points where I feel like that I would like to pick up the guitar again in a little bit more of a musical sense and put something out myself. And you know what? That's really inspired me, listening to him talk about Boa. It's I don't think that's anything that anybody should ever forget. The pathway is made fruitful by those willing to travel. And wow, did she do that? 11 years old, 14 years old, being such a necessity as an entertainer, but also at the same time too, like, as someone that's so important for the country. It's impressive. It's impressive. Anyway, let me know what y'all think about this, and we'll discuss this down in the comments below. Thank you. Have a good one.